Welcome to this.podcast. I'm your friendly host, Jay, joined by my friends. We got Co.
Man, what we talking about?
And then we got Uncle Damo. The intro music you're listening to right now is Dust and Bones by The Reminders. Local group, hot group. Great performance. Great performance, yo.
Man, I saw him open up for Nas, man.
Yeah. And you know, Carl.
That's a pretty stark contrast.
Like, open up for Nas? That's pretty dope.
Reminders to Nas. Are you judging?
Are you just as far as
Not
the
judging.
music?
I just said it's a stark contrast.
Well, you got to listen to some of their other music,
Fair enough.
right? Certain styles. They got a few others. It all got sold.
Yes, absolutely. And you can catch The Reminders and us on all major platforms, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and then we got video on YouTube. Shout out to the incredible Lawrence and Larimer for providing the space. You can catch them on lawrenceandlarimer.com, or you can come to 3225 East Colfax Avenue. And y'all, let's get right into it. I gotta turn down the music for this because we got a very, very special guest.
Special.
And I want to make sure I get all this right. So this woman is a state representative of the 8th District in Colorado, the first black LGBTQ to hold office in Colorado, serving as chair of the Appropriations Committee,
Spending money.
the chair of the Colorado Black Democratic Legislative Caucus, and now running to be Denver's next mayor, Leslie. Welcome, Leslie Herod, to the show. Let me give you a round of applause. Absolutely. Well deserved. You out here working.
You know, we got to.
Absolutely, right? You got to put in the time, represent the people, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and we've had generations of laws against us. It's time to have some laws for us moving forward, right?
Yes, and we're going to get into that because you do have, when it comes to pushing legislation, you have an impressive resume.
Oh, thank you.
You know, like
dominating.
Yeah, because how long have you been in office?
I was elected in 2016 and started serving in 2017.
Wow, so that's approximately 5 years, coming on 6.
Yeah.
And, you know, before we get into that,
yes,
tell us, because hometown for you is Colorado Springs, right?
That's right.
Yeah, give a shout out to where you're from and what you represent and all that good stuff.
Yeah, shout out to the Springs.
Yeah.
I graduated high school from Harrison High School.
Shout out to
Panthers.
Harrison. Yep. Go
And then
Panthers.
I went up to CU, so go Buffs.
Buffs.
So I am a
Buffs.
Buff, yes.
They looking nice right now. They got prime time. How you feeling about that?
Well, we can talk about it. About
let's
it.
get into
But,
it.
No, I'm hopeful, right, that that we will be a winning team in the next season. And so I'm excited that we have a new coach. I'm excited that we have a black coach.
Yes.
I
Yes.
just think maybe we need to bring that black coach into community a little bit more.
Talk about it. That because I think what's cool about primetime, I think he's all about that, right? Like unapologetic, true self, and what you see is what you get. And he's just a polarizing figure.
Yeah.
And he's definitely somebody that can push change, right?
Yeah.
Is Boulder ready for Deion?
Yeah, I think so.
That's a big personality.
I mean, Boulder's fine with that. I think the issue that we have is this this argument right now that because he left to HBCU to go to one of the whitest schools in the nation, right?
Right.
That he doesn't represent black people or that his blackness is in question. And I do have a problem with that. Now, he has said some things that to me feel very anti-black, but that don't make him less of a black man.
Yes.
You know?
Got it.
And so I got to give him credit for being a black coach at a very much white school, but that does not diminish at all any of the HBCUs,
It doesn't.
you know, or the coaches down there, or the people that go to HBCUs. And that's the conversation we're in right now, and I think it's pretty uncalled for. And I would hope, and I have hope that he would rise above that conversation. But it seems like on Twitter he's kind of in the muck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like Black Twitter is kind of going after him for that, right?
Yeah.
And I think you bring up great points because Co and I, all three of us had that conversation of like, what does that mean to his legacy? You know, him coming to Colorado, I think we're all excited. And the things that he's done for HBCUs is
Not
undeniable.
Jackson State.
Yeah, just HBCUs all across.
All across.
That's right.
all across
Let's
the
make
board.
that really clear.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not just one school.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Bringing 4-star and 5-star recruits,
Man.
not only to Jackson State, but to other universities.
Think about the economic impact he had for Jackson, Mississippi.
Right.
Think about the economic impact that he had for the schools that were airing on TV,
Right.
that were playing Jackson State or weren't even playing Jackson State. They're just a part of the HBCU conferences.
Absolutely.
Dude,
The swag.
Like we can go because they call it the prime effect, right?
Yeah.
Prime does this. They were saying it's like a $30 million impact over 10 years that he created in Jackson State.
Oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
That's crazy, right?
I'm sure.
Crazy.
And he kind of stepped into a program that was, I'm not going to say they were bad, but the facilities weren't up to par.
Right.
The kids weren't
And he
getting
got 'em
the-
right.
He got them right, you
Right.
know. And so he did his job. You know, I think for any coach or any person that takes over a program, it's your responsibility to make that program better when you leave.
Right.
Right. And Jackson State is miles better now with Deion being involved in that program than they were prior to Deion being involved in that program.
And the
I
last
agree.
thing that I'll leave with is who in Colorado, there's probably a small portion, wouldn't 10x their value to go to somewhere like CU or a promotion in general, not just
Yeah.
CU.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Just you're 10xing what you did before.
50 cent, man.
Right.
People leaving for 50 cent, man.
I want to be clear.
Nah, absolutely.
My family, the Harrod side of my family is from Water Valley, Mississippi, which is outside of Jackson,
Okay.
not too far from Jackson, outside of Oxford.
Shout out.
And so, you know, the effect is real. And bringing resources down to Mississippi,
Yeah.
where there is not a lot of resources, especially for Black people, I got to give a shout out to him for doing that in the first place, right?
Absolutely.
But I take no issue with him coming to Colorado and then going to CU because, quite frankly, I did that, right? I mean,
No, absolutely.
I went to Harrison High School and also went to Baton Rouge, Broadmoor High School in Baton Rouge. You know, I was back and forth between the South and in Colorado. And I see nothing wrong with deciding to go to CU. Now, I went because it was cheaper for me. He's coming because he's making more money.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
So it's all about
Absolutely.
the economics, to be real. But when he's here, I hope he lifts up Black students and Black people in Colorado because CU does not have enough Black students. When I went to CU, I didn't know when I went there because there were Black people in the brochures. But when I went, we were the least diverse.
Got him, got
right?
him.
We were the least diverse public college next to Brigham Young.
And
Wait.
University of Utah too.
Right, Utah schools, right? Where there's not many Black Mormons to begin with. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm
Absolutely.
not Mormon and I went to school in Utah.
Well, so what was your percent of Black? Do you remember?
Oh, it was less than 1%.
Yeah, and ours was at 1. Okay, and so I didn't know that, and I came here to CU, and that's when I actually started to get into politics because I realized what happens when there's no representation of Black people.
You're
And so-
underrepresented, yeah.
Underrepresented. So I ran for student government. CU actually has the largest student government in the nation. So,
This
So before I was
podcast,
20 years
bussin',
old, I was
bussin'.
overseeing a $36 million budget. Okay. And that's when I learned the power of politics and the power of resources. And so this past year, as a chair of appropriations, I was overseeing a $36 billion budget. Now it's a few years later
Why?
since college.
Slight
but
flex.
it got me, you
Yeah,
know what
sort
I
of,
mean?
man.
Like
Yeah,
it got me on
flex
the
on it.
path.
Sort of.
It got me on the
Absolutely.
path.
So, Leslie,
And so,
I
shout
have
out.
just one question to ask.
Yeah.
How many checks bounced on you?
Personal or for the state?
Talk to him. Talk to him.
Listen, when I was a student at CU, I will say there was a few times my car would not move off the street, and it's because, you know, they be loving to bring a boot somewhere. I learned my lesson though.
That was
Yeah.
good.
No, that was great. So I think that segues into a lot of your background in the politics and what you represent and the heart, why you do it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And, you know, getting to some of the bills and legislation that you have pushed and gotten passed, you know, things that come to mind is the, I don't know the name of the bill, but the police accountability
Yeah.
bill that you passed a couple summers ago, and
Yeah.
then the Crown Act, things like that. You have been the catalyst of those kind of things. And that's dope because there's a lot of politicians that get into it, no matter who it is, they just for money, self-promote. And you're really putting your money where your mouth is as far as getting things done. So tell us about that drive and why you do it.
Yeah. Well, I want to be clear. I passed those bills as a legislator, but they were really powered by the people. You can't deny the movement that we had in Colorado around police accountability.
Bussin'.
And as so many of us, I was one of those people that did not want to look on my smartphone and see George Floyd be murdered. I was sick of watching black men and women be murdered on social media. And so I was avoiding it. We were in the middle of a pandemic. We were in the middle of COVID. Folks didn't know if we were going to make it out of that summer, you know?
Right.
And so finally, I decided to watch the video, and I was like, we got to do something about this. And everyone really woke up. We woke up. Yeah. And we said, you know what? If this is our last year here, we're going to make it worth it. You know?
Right, absolutely.
And we went to the streets.
Yeah.
And so many of us participated in the what I call the Summer of Reckoning, not only in Denver, but throughout the country.
Right.
But in Denver, what was interesting that happened was we were still legislating. And so we didn't close down the Capitol. We came back for our COVID session. We had about 16 days to get the job done. And the protests were happening right out front. And because we decided to have a conversation about what was going on in Colorado, Elijah McClain.
That's what I was going to say.
You know?
Absolutely.
The conversation shifted to be something of this amorphous national police accountability conversation to what are we going to do in Colorado to make sure that people are safe? Because Elijah McClain did not deserve to die. He did nothing, you know?
Absolutely.
And so many others, Devon Bailey, who got shot in the back while running away. We have too many Colorado cases for this to be only about someone somewhere else. And so so instead of just protesting, I realized that while, yes, it's important to be on the streets with folks, right, I also have a job to represent and legislate. Yes. And so instead of just being out there, I said, why don't we do something about it? So I got together with the Black Caucus, and we did something about it. And I will say that during that first day, I was actually shot at. The protest that I was in was shot at. And no one remembers it, right, because things really erupted from there. Wow. But in that moment, I was rushed into the Capitol. I was put under lockdown. And I said, you know what? I'm getting a bill. I'm getting something done about this. Because if they're so afraid of what we have to say that they want to shoot into a crowd of protesters and no one identified who shot, no one went after that person, right? We're going to have a bill and we're going to come out of this different, you know?
Right.
I'm sick of us being shot for Skittles or for much less than that, you know?
Right.
And so it's time for us to do something about it. And so I got with the Black Caucus, I got with the Latino Caucus, and in 16 days we passed police accountability with the people at the table.
This podcast, bussin'.
I don't remember them highlighting that politicians were out there, like on the news and the media.
Right.
I don't think they said that. But was that the one where they had like the barricade and a dude shot like a 9mm or something like that?
No, this was literally at the Capitol. So let me not make it sound too dramatic or too much work.
The drama.
Because I want to be clear. Like, I was in the Capitol legislating, and it was about 4:30. So it ain't even nighttime in the summer. You know what I mean?
Right.
And a small protest had just started. So I went outside, right? I just went outside of my office, and I said, I hear people protesting. I want to go out and see what it's about. Ran into a lot of friends. We're just standing there having a mostly peaceful protest, but clearly angry and wanting change. It was less than 100 people, and that's when someone shot into the crowd.
Wow.
And then that night, everything erupted.
Got it.
Jeez.
Man, that summer was crazy.
Yeah,
man.
we went and interviewed the next morning. I know, we think about it now.
Yeah. That's why I looked at all this.
Yeah, we went and interviewed the next morning, and by the time we went in the interview, folks had forgot about the shooting, right? Yeah. And they were talking about how the president of the Senate, Leroy Garcia, who was not for police accountability at the time, and in fact had voted against law enforcement bills in the past, his truck got vandalized because they thought his big blue, Pueblo truck was a law enforcement vehicle.
Wow.
And so it got stomped on camera. I mean, it was bad. And the media was interviewing me under this tree, and it was 100 degrees. And then next to me, it was Leroy interviewing. And they said, well, Leroy, or President, what do you think should happen to the people who vandalized your truck? And he turned to me, and then he looked back at the media, and he said, I can fix my truck. I can replace my truck. I can't bring back people who've died because of police brutality.
Shit.
And I said, who's that?
Yeah.
In that moment. And I turned to him.
New
and
phone,
I said,
who this?
You're right. And I said, well, Leroy, I have a bill for you. And he was like, I was hoping you would ask me. And so together, the Black and Brown Caucus moved this bill forward. We got it passed in 16 days.
That's dope.
That
16
is dope.
days.
That's dope.
This podcast.
And one of my colleagues actually
bussin'.
says, it was interesting because one, we were one of the only buildings in the nation where we had, we were open. We were debating bills. We had no one interrupted the proceedings, not once, from the protests, no one. But instead, they participated in the democratic process, came and testified until 2, 3 a.m., talked about how police accountability affects them. And then my colleague told me, she was like, the soundtrack of that entire bill was no justice, no peace being yelled outside of the Capitol. We had to pass police accountability. And in Colorado,
this
we did.
podcast.
That's so
bussin',
dope because I
bussin'.
think that speaks a lot to, one, the perseverance, and when people get together on the same page and put their minds together, like we can accomplish anything,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like there have been bills at a higher level,
Yeah.
at the federal level, where it's like, the language isn't right, and there's this big tussle, and nothing ever happens.
Nothing
But
happened.
I would like you to speak, because I think that's an example of like how important it is at the state level
Yeah.
to make sure that you come out, vote on the issues, make sure you have the right representatives for you in your policies, and what you see. Like, can you talk to us a little bit about why it's so important on the state level?
So, Jay, state and local, right?
Yeah.
Yes, state and local.
Well, it's
Yep.
really important to vote, right? And to vote your entire ballot, but to know who you're voting for and what they're about. People think that they just vote in the general election, right? So we know what happened in Georgia with Warnock and Walker, right? And it's like, okay, well,
We're done.
how did that man get in? How did Walker get into that seat? Because of the primary, right?
Absolutely.
Thankfully, we have Warnock, but that happened through a primary process. So you have to vote early to pick who's going to represent the party that you say that you're a part of, or if you're not a part of party, who those last two names on the ballot are. So it's important to be engaged. But what I will say is that hold folks accountable after the election too. I mean, if you elect me and I haven't done nothing for you, then we need to have a conversation about that, and maybe someone needs to run against me,
Right.
I believe in that.
I have a follow-up.
You got a cough.
No, go ahead. You're good. Were you taught about this at a young age?
My mom was in the Army, and I was very interested in politics. I was very interested in policy because we had, when I was overseas, we had one channel. And so I had to watch whatever was there. And that was
Got
the
it.
news. And then it was Star Trek, And so,
Final
and the
Frontier,
Cosby
or was
Show,
it
right?
like the
Germany got to do better than that.
okay,
Next Generation, got
Next
it.
Generation, And so I got involved through that. And I was born in Germany, And so watching the Berlin Wall fall was something,
I remember that.
I remember
that
that.
was
I
really
remember
like
that.
in my mind as what's going on in a government that people can be separated by a wall and then it can topple,
So you were, 10, 11 when that happened?
Yeah. And so that was really fascinating to me. And for me, it was where I was born. So I was really interested in what was going on there. And then I was just a kid that traveled so much. I was always at a new school. I got involved in student government. I got involved in every club. I was a cheerleader. I was in the French club. Can't speak a lick of French. Okay, can't speak a lick of it. But I joined it, right? Because that's how I made friends and how I made friends quickly. But I think that experience helps me to now be in any situation. I don't care if I'm in a room full of rich white men, conservatives, or, at Lawrence and Larimer. I'll be wherever I want to be and still be myself and still be who I am.
Podcast,
But I'll also make sure
bussin'.
that I'm there for a reason and a purpose, because I believe that I'm here because my ancestors have put me here in this role and in this space. And I can't leave, right, without doing the work of my ancestors and of my community. And so I leave every room with something for us.
So I think my question is, so how should a person go about educating themselves on the ballot, on the issues, on the people who are running, like a quick cheat sheet? Are those provided? Because sometimes these ballots be so vast and it's like, okay, forget it. I'm just going to go party line.
Yeah.
And then when it starts to get to the judges, and it's like,
Yeah, that's what I
like,
was gonna say.
And you get
Coach.
tired.
even for me, yeah, like, hey, I'm this circuit of appeals judge.
And approval
It's like-
ratings.
Yeah, and it's like for me, okay, like it's real easy for me to do child welfare court.
Right.
You know what I mean? Juvenile court.
Right.
I know I'm familiar with those judges. I've worked with them. I know them, so it's easy for me to mark those down.
Right.
But then it's like when you start getting to these courts of appeals, this right here, okay, this ballot, like is there a cheat sheet out there that people can get a hold of to say, okay, this aligns with my values and the things I
There are, and a lot of elected officials or advocacy organizations, maybe like the NAACP, maybe myself, will put out, this is what I think about something.
And you approve, right?
And I approve it. And you got to know and trust my work enough to say that matters to you, right? Because just Leslie Harry put her name on something, if you don't know anything that I've done, you don't care, So there's that. But I'm actually going to step back and say I used to be on the Judicial Performance Commission, where I created those little blurbs about the judges that are in the Blue Book. We do have a Blue Book that comes to us. It doesn't tell you how to vote. It tells you a little bit more about each issue.
Got it.
And we need more folks like you working in the system, to actually serve on the Judicial Performance Commission and rate those judges so that we have folks who understand the system and how the system impacts people of color, determining if those judges stand for retention. In Colorado, which is it's different in other states, we don't elect our judges. We just vote to retain them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have a follow-up question on that because I have a good friend who's a judge elsewhere, to be named, and he talked about like the placement on the ballot. I don't know if that's like here as well. He talked about his last name being ethnic, number one. Number two. And he's in a very major city. Yeah. And number two, his placement on the ballot, it does make a difference. And they have data to show, like, if you're in these, like, let's say 3 or 4 placements and you have an ethnic name, the likelihood of you winning is high.
Right. So in Colorado, if you have an ethnic last name and you have to be, you have a performance review, right? And you have a survey that basically people who have interacted with you get to vote.
Yes.
Lawyers, family members, all of that get to vote and get to say how you've done. If you have an ethnic last name, you are rated lower, period. And so being on the Judicial Performance Commission, I was able to call that out.
Got it.
And to say that we can't just have a random vote of these people who have the time to fill out this survey because we see that it's biased. So that can't be the only way that we get information about whether or not a judge can be retained or not. And so then we had folks to come interview, and then we got to have a conversation about bias. If you're female, you were rated lower as well. And so then you mix that with the placement on the ballot where people get weary as they go lower down the ballot. Yeah. That's where we start to see judges of color drop off because they don't have enough votes. People didn't go that far down to be retained, or in some cases, I don't know where your friend is, but to be elected in the first place.
It's funny you say that because I do flip it on its head because I'm like, let me see who has the most ethnic name.
I'm going there first.
Yeah, let me retain them or vote yes for them. So I guess what I'm hearing is that there's surveys and data out there that kind of give you performance on judges and you got to kind of go seek that out? Or is there like a one-stop shop where we can get this information?
There's a website for the judges.
Okay.
And then there will be other websites for the ballot measures, and then there'll be other websites, right, for the candidates.
That's a lot of double clicking right there, boy.
And click. Exactly. And I will say,
drill downs.
In running for mayor of Denver, we've never had a female mayor before, and so I'm looking forward to being the first.
Here we go.
I am running against 24 other people as of the day this recording is taped.
Wow.
It might be more.
This podcast.
We were just talking about that of like, or me and Co were as far as like how many people actually run for mayor.
Yeah.
So how are you going to know who to support? And so, I will tell folks to listen to this podcast, to listen and seek out not only what I can write down and say about myself, because I'm going to be honest, our consultants do most of that work, right? Our staff or whoever will write out, here's your resume. Yes, that's what I've done, but I don't know if all these folks, I don't know what's real or what's not, but have a conversation. Go to a forum if you want, or watch one, but reach out to the folks that you identify with and see who even would show up to the show, right? Who's going to have conversation with community, have they been to Lawrence and Larimer before,
Right.
When I ran the first time, my opponent didn't want to canvass above MLK. Because they thought it was dangerous.
Wow.
So if you're not in the community, how you gonna represent community?
They said they want the old Stapleton back.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And so
We're not calling it Central Park. This is Stapleton.
Yeah, this is Stapleton.
and then also I say look for folks who are willing to do the work, because a lot of people put their names down, but they ain't willing to do the work.
I mean, Leslie's down here doing the work. Man.
Doing the work. Because you represent. Go ahead, Cole.
Nah, but so it's the, you know what, I think for citizens, it's the little things that you do. You know what I mean? We kind of created this podcast in terms of just fellas came out of the pandemic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Chopping it up, having these conversations, and then it was like, hey, let's bring our conversations out to the public, right? Yeah. And, you know, for us to be consistent at this, and then finally, you know, trying to, man, even having the confidence to reach out to guests to have them on the show.
Right.
I came to the guys, I said, yo, it's this lady, her name is Leslie Harrod. She's running for mayor. And I came across you in this just weird organic way, like just on Instagram. And I was like, man, we got to have her on the show. I'm here.
Absolutely. Yep.
Hit you up.
This podcast.
Got a response.
Bussin'.
And you're here.
Yeah, of course.
You don't have to be here. But like, you don't have to be here.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you came, just you. That means so much, not only to us, but to the people that's watching this show. She doesn't have an entourage.
Right.
She doesn't have security.
All right. None of that.
Not yet.
Not yet. It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
think you
She'd
just
be like, Sauce, Damo, help.
Right. And I just want to be clear,
Just
I
can't run
am
down.
secured. Okay, so don't be messing around with me. All right.
You know, but you trusted us. You trusted us enough as your fellow brothers to come down here.
No, that was dope.
And have this conversation.
This
and those are the little
podcast,
things that not only resonates with us as a group, but the people that's watching this show.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Because it makes you reachable.
Right.
And
You know
real.
what I mean? Yeah, and real, like
Authentic.
Yeah, like Barack, like okay, I know I just couldn't run up on Barack, right? But when I saw
My
him on
mom
TV,
did. I will tell you she did.
just
Did
ran
she?
up on him.
Yeah,
Wow.
she did.
Do tell.
Yeah. How did that
Let's
happen?
talk about it. Talk about it.
So I actually worked for Barack Obama on the 2012 reelection campaign here in Colorado.
Got it.
And so I brought my mom to one of the rallies that was actually up in Fort Collins. And she sure did run up on him and give him the biggest hug and maybe a little extra pat.
But why?
Oh, like
though?
on the
What?
butt? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, she was getting freaky, huh?
I was like, she's like, I'm not missing this opportunity once in a lifetime. And I was like, and now I'm fired. But thankfully I was able to keep my job.
Yeah.
And so because she did love his authenticity.
That's what I'm saying.
You know, and the
That's
whole
dope.
families, right? And the representation of seeing a black man, being a black man in the White House. you
Means so
know?
much.
It meant so
Yeah,
much.
history.
It meant so much to all of us.
Absolutely.
You know? When not only when Barack was president, but when he did that that DNC speech, it changed so many folks a perception of a black man leading. You know,
Absolutely.
but gave us all that hope that we needed, right? And so her being in that space, it was almost one of those things where she could not reach out to him and show her appreciation in whatever way.
It makes you and it made your mother feel comfortable.
Right.
You know, like
And she didn't get tackled.
No, that's unique, right? Like in itself.
Yeah.
Like,
And so I think my follow-up question to that is, how do you maintain your authenticity in politics?
Yeah. I think it's important to be out in community, you know, and be around people that are going to keep you real. And I'm lucky to have that. That's the number one way. It can be very isolating, you know. You can't be head down, not trust nobody, you know, because people do screw you over in this job too, you know. There's times when you feel like you can't do anyone right, you know what I mean? It's like
Right.
something's always wrong. But then also there are folks who you know you've changed their lives and you've had impact. And that's what motivates you, or young people that decide they can do more, right? Because they've seen the work that you've done, or because you've created a path for them or showed them that you believe in them. That's important to me. That's worth the entire job, you know? But I think it's about being in community.
and I was going to say, and I'll let you go. I think what's so dope about your whole message is that you kind of talked about proximity. And Damo says this a lot.
All the time. That's his favorite word, proximity.
Yeah. It's a great word.
Right?
It's a great word. It's a great word. But it's like, since you've seen a lot of different cultures, been in a lot of different countries, seen a lot of things, like you're able to relate, you're relatable, you're able to operate. And it's kind of that Obama effect, right? Of like, I fit in all spaces, right? I feel comfortable being me in all spaces, no matter what it is. And I can relate to other people because I've met them where they're at, you know, so.
Because we belong there too.
Right.
We belong
Yeah.
here. We belong in all of those spaces. And for so long, as Black folks, we've been told we can't be here. Or as brown folks, or whoever you are, you know, you don't make enough money to be in this room. You don't have enough proximity to power to be making these kind of decisions. That's wrong. It's wrong. And when we're there, we should be able to be our full authentic selves. And I would tell you, I am not very good at being anybody else. I'm damn good at being myself.
This podcast.
So that's what putting my best foot forward is what you're going to get.
Yeah, so two-part question. Well, no, it's not even a question. The first one is what they're saying is, I say, how do you have empathy without proximity?
Yeah,
is what
that's
I
right.
say.
That's
so
right.
it's like when you think about communities that don't have presence, how do you gain more empathy? There's no way other than having proximity to that. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. Number two, I would say, or I would ask is like, you've had a lot of proud moments as a politician or as somebody that's working at the Capitol or whatever position you're in. What was one of your most impactful is not a word, but like, yeah, the most impactful thing, even though it's not a word, that you
Well,
impactful.
I think
You're
that
good.
it's not a word.
I think that one, police accountability. Never thought that would happen when I introduced that bill.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have the conversation. I'd hoped that we were getting pieces of the bill. I didn't know we were going to pass it in that way.
Got it.
And to be there next to Senator James Coleman, who is like my ride or die in the Capitol.
Yeah,
Shout out to James
James.
Coleman.
Yo,
He
yo.
just he
just
did something,
he just did
accomplishment.
me, no, he just did. Well, he had an accomplishment, but he just did me a solid.
Yeah, we're gonna have him on the show. By
Yeah,
the
we're
way,
gonna have him on the show, but because I work for the Pirates, and he's we have our banquet coming up, and I hit him kind of last minute, and he literally gave me a 2-day turnaround, man, on a 1 to 2. He's an ex-Pirate, you know what I mean, and talk about his experience as a Pirate, talk about how the Pirates have benefited him as an adult and his career. So shout out to James Coleman.
Shout out James Coleman. And so to be able to pass that bill with him together was one of the moments I'll never forget.
Mm-hmm.
But additionally, the Crown Act. I remember
This
when we started
podcast,
hearing
bussin'.
over and over and over again these young Black kids who were told they had to straighten their hair, cut off their dreadlocks in the middle of a wrestling match or at East cheering because of their hair, right? And wearing their hair whatever way they wanted to. And I was like, why is that not considered racist and racial discrimination? And we've all had that conversation. Like, that is racist, But the laws said it wasn't, right? The laws said that, quite frankly, hair discrimination was not discrimination. And so I introduced the Crown Act not knowing what a Crown Act was because we were so new that we were one of the first states to pass it. So when I introduced the bill, it was really just non-discrimination for ethnic hairstyles. We didn't have a cool name for it until the Crown Coalition reached out to me, led by Oprah,
dope. Shout
right?
out, yeah.
Reached
This
out and said,
podcast,
this is a national movement. I did it because I heard about what happened and I wanted to reach out to the young people that were told that they couldn't be who they were and be amazing athletes, right? Or stand out in their school or whatever it was. And then I realized I don't have to just say, thank you for your courage for speaking up. I could do something about it. I can write a bill.
Absolutely.
And so when we introduced the bill, I decided it was one of the first bills we introduced as the Black Caucus. Not saying we don't need, if we have one Black person on the bill, everybody else has to be white. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We said, no, this is going to be a Black Caucus bill. We're going to lead on this. And we're going to have the Black community come in and have a conversation. So we had the first ever Black Caucus hearing, and then we went into the actual hearing where Senator Representative at the time, Coleman, was leading the hearing as the chair. And the number of people from our community that showed up in that Capitol and testified about hair discrimination was so powerful. And then seeing how the vote went through, where Democrats and Republicans, white guys who didn't know anything about it, were like, wow, this is real, and I'm going to have to vote, in favor of this bill, was so powerful. And then seeing Latinos and indigenous men with long hair showing up and saying, I was discriminated against in this way too, showed me the intersectionality of this issue. That was impactful. And so that was a hugely powerful moment. And we signed that bill into law right before we went into COVID shutdown at Cleo Parker Robinson Dance. On stage.
Round of applause.
Man,
Round of applause.
man, and I hope you don't feel like we're just peppering you with questions.
This
but
is
you're just
exciting.
Yeah,
Exciting.
like yo, you're just so accomplished But I just kind of want to circle back to like how do you remain authentic, right? Where do you go to recharge? Like, is it the home? Is it the homegirls? Is it my family? Is it brunch? You know, do we have
Garden
brunch
of the
days?
Gods.
It ain't Garden of God.
Yeah, I know. I know it ain't Garden
That's
of the Gods.
monumental in the strings.
so
though.
like-
Broadmoor.
Yeah. So like, who is that? Like, what is that thing or a group of people, that area,
That's a good
whatever
question, man.
that recharges you to say? Because like they say introverts, right? Like introverts go to these parties and you got to put the face on,
Right.
and they got it where they go in the bathroom. They're like, oh.
That's real.
Tank is on empty. I've had
Tank's on
enough.
empty.
Yeah, I've been doing this all day.
Yeah.
No,
all
absolutely.
week. Yeah.
So where do you go? What do you do?
Yeah, so for me, it is the homegirls, you
Okay.
know, for sure. But it's also arts. I love to be around the arts. And I'm on the Museum for Contemporary Arts board. You know, we just brought the Dirty South exhibit, which is still showing right now. First time that exhibit has left
Had
the
no
South.
idea about that.
Yeah, have
I
you
didn't
have
either.
you seen it yet?
No, I had no idea.
Oh, you got to go. It's dope.
Yeah.
Right? It's amazing. And so being in those spaces with arts really does, it rejuvenates me. And that's why I do love the reminders. You know, I love to go to a good concert. I love to go see, you know, whatever. I'm always into the arts. And I feel like that really moves me. And I think Denver has a great art scene, you know. It's underappreciated sometimes, but we have a good creative scene. And so for me, it's all about the arts.
Man, name drop,
dope.
man. But shout out to Bobby Lefebvre. That's my boy.
That's my guy, too.
That's my
Bobby.
guy.
Yeah.
Bobby, we're going to have you on the show, Bobby.
Yeah, we love
on the show.
Bobby.
That's my
He
guy.
actually did my kickoff video for my first campaign.
Oh, Bobby did?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. So we go way back.
That's dope. Because
But that's why
Bobby's
the
a
arts
poet,
movement-
right?
Yeah,
And
he's a poet.
He's a
yeah.
poet, and he's on the art commission.
Got it.
You know, so
Shout out to
Exactly.
Bobby.
So
Exactly.
have you been to the Museum for Black Girls?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. Yeah.
Nice.
So there's so much of that here in Denver that people don't know about, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's about getting that message and bringing folks along. But that's where I like to be. That's where you're going to find me.
All right, so switching gears a little bit, because you did do some name dropping, some big names. You threw out Obama, Oprah, and I've seen you rub elbows with Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about Julio Castro. Tell us about, because that's the national scene, you know, and first I want to know your career aspirations. One day, do you see yourself, you know, being at White House or just being in DC as far as carrying your politics? And then the second question is, like, what's the energy that you get from like those national figures and when you're in the room with them?
Yeah. So I'll answer the second part first. So what I'll say is that all those folks you see me with are pretty damn authentic too. And that's what I like. I like being able to just like kick back and be like, all right, we have very similar lives. You understand what I'm going through. Let's set that aside and have a good drink, you know, and just talk about life.
That's dope.
That's what I like to do. You know, it's not just about doing a photo op or whatever, but it's really about being able to relate to somebody just like y'all do, you know, who is maybe experiencing something very similar to you. And then also kind of looking at where you aspire to be as well. You know,
Right.
like Kamala has had an amazing career, and she's now the vice president of the United States of America as a black woman. She's dope, you know.
There's only one position she could go higher, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I want to, whatever wisdom you give me, you want to give me, I'm taking it. And if that means we just going to learn what your favorite cocktail is, that's what we're going to do. But if you want to throw out
absolutely.
some little pieces of wisdom in that too,
yeah.
that's
Absolutely.
cool. Cause she gone through a lot, you know?
So I have to say this. So would you take 500,000 or the dinner with Jay-Z?
500,000.
Okay.
Because I feel like I'll probably be at that table one day anyway. And so if it ain't got to be tomorrow, I'm going to take that money, pay some bills, and then we going to hang out with Jay-Z later. And
But you know, but you know, there's people out there fronting like, oh yeah, I just want to pick Jay-Z's brain. I turned down to 500,000. Like, man, get your
And
ass
I'm
out.
taking the 500
no.
racks
You know,
all
you talk
day.
about cash right here on the table.
Cash
We about to
right
take
here.
that money, and I will listen harder to his albums.
Hey, you be at Furniture Road rebuying furniture for the whole
You
house.
know what I mean? I'll be spending it before I left, right?
Yeah, buy another house, right?
Yeah.
So, and then when it comes to future aspirations, what I will say is I love being in Colorado. I can travel anywhere from here. So I was just in DC
That's
this
dope.
weekend.
That's dope.
You know, we can decide to go anywhere we want to, right, in this country. The sky is the limit, and I hope folks do travel more because I think that's so important. But my home is here in Colorado, and so I hope to always be able to represent from Colorado in some way. And if that means that I'm representing, down in, in Capitol Hill, that's where I'm gonna be, in Colorado, in Denver. If that means I'm gonna be out in Washington representing Colorado and coming here often, that's where I'm gonna be. It's really about where the people want me to be. But I see my home and my heart right here in Denver.
Yeah, so
that's dope.
That's great. I love that. And speaking of which, like, where do you think us as Coloradans have the most work to do in terms of politics?
Being about what we talk about, we are great at passing bills and policies that say we are, anti-racist, we're anti-homophobic, all these things. And then we have a mass shooting at Club Q, right?
Yes.
So we talk about it, but we don't be about it, right? We say that we support Black-owned small businesses, but yet 5 Points still ain't moving in the direction we need it to be moving in, Black-owned businesses
Facts.
are not being supported throughout the city in the way that they should be.
Big facts.
And so when I pass bills and laws and I'm like, well, why the heck are we still seeing our businesses close? It's because the local branch, the local level is where the implementation happens. And so there's been a disconnect between the laws that we've passed and the impact we're having in our neighborhoods and our communities and people's everyday lives. That's why I'm running for mayor, because that's where the job is getting done right now, is at the mayoral level. And we're seeing Black people across the country taking over mayor's offices because of just that reason.
This
Did you
podcast,
see
bussin'.
and I don't know if this is fake or not, the 18-year-old young man that won the mayor of said city in Arkansas?
I saw that.
I did.
Wow.
I saw that.
Yeah, it was just today.
I saw that.
Like
18
Little
years
Rock,
old.
or is
No,
No.
it's like some little
this,
town.
like little town?
Yeah.
At
Yeah, some small
18,
town.
that's impressive.
But he beat some very accomplished, like 40-something-year-old person. And I don't know the details,
Man,
but
that kid probably has his ears to the street.
Hey, man.
Like he's probably
Exactly.
He's
And he
tuned
mobilized
in.
people,
Yep.
right? So good for him, but now we got to support him, right?
Yes.
Because these jobs are not easy. There's a lot of folks that are going to want to, stab him in the back, to be honest with you, right? And have his job make him look bad. So we've
Right.
got to support him too. When I was younger and running for student government at CU, I'm glad that my whole life wasn't on social media. I'm glad that folks couldn't put me on blast
Yes,
that way, because I
yes.
made mistakes. I
Yes.
made real mistakes,
Yes.
and I needed to make those mistakes to be a strong leader as I am today, right? But now I see others who are young people doing these things, and they are getting wore down, beat down, just like child stars, because that's what they are in politics. They're child stars. And we're seeing the same effects on them as we have been seeing some of these other young folks that have grown up. And we gotta work on that, We've got to support our young people, and we got to do it stronger.
So real quick, going back to the unfortunate shooting that we had at Club Q, for you personally, I know that hits home because you are part of that community, and
from the Springs.
and from the Springs, and you were on MSNBC not too long ago talking about the issue. The first question I have is, can you just tell us like what you felt in that moment? And then the second question is, what do you think we need to do at a state level or maybe at a national level when it comes to gun laws and the things that we need to put in place to make sure that these kind of things just don't happen?
Yeah. Well, in the moment, when I woke up and I saw the mass shooting, information come up about the mass shooting, I was, heartbroken, devastated. I go to Club Q. I've been to Club Q, especially over the holidays when I'm down with my family in Colorado Springs and I just want to go out and be with my people, that's where I would go,
Right.
And Club Q is a place that is, that welcomes everybody, It's actually funny because one of my friends was saying, is that even a queer club anymore? Because everybody goes there. And I'm like, well, that's cool, so let's go check it out.
That's how it should be.
That's how
right?
it should be, right? And so we're all hanging out. And so I'm thinking about right now to have that place of community, that place of connection being taken away from you during the holidays, kind of when you need it the most. It's devastating. It's devastating. Right. So I was heartbroken, and heartbroken for the people who really need that space, especially the younger folks. And then I was pissed off. Why the hell don't we do more to stop this gun violence? And quite frankly, this could have been stopped. We have laws on the books that I co-sponsored called ERPOs, Extreme Risk Protection Orders, red flags, a lot of folks are calling them, where we know if someone is a danger to themselves or others, we can make sure that they don't have access to their weapons for a period of time. This person has a record of doing harm. This
Right.
person had a standoff with law enforcement, never got prosecuted for it.
But
Can
that's
you
so,
imagine if we were sitting here having
absolutely.
Come on now. If
And
we
that's
make
a
it out
shame.
alive, we definitely getting charged.
Hey, not to mention his
1,000.
daddy.
You know what I mean? Woo.
Yo, but did
So-
that
Oh, yeah, his
rattle?
dad
But did
was
that,
nuts.
So kind of with that being said, you was like, yo, there's a bill that I co-sponsored that failed.
It didn't fail. So what I think happened is the implementation failed. Again, that's why we're
Okay.
running for mayors, right?
Okay. Got it.
Because
Okay.
Colorado Springs and El Paso County said that they are a Second Amendment sanctuary city.
Oh,
So, but where's the sanctuary for kids who are going to school or people who want to go to a movie theater or a nightclub, you know?
Right.
And so that pisses me off because they have said that they are not going to implement the law.
Oh.
They have said very clearly, we will never file an extreme risk protection order against somebody. That's a problem because they could have saved lives. That's dangerous. And I believe that people who do that because they believe that they know better than or whatever than the laws that were passed, that they have to be held accountable when those laws could have stopped something like a mass shooting. And so this is all about this like anti-Black Lives Matter movement, this anti, police accountability. We're not going to do any of this stuff that you have passed into law. We're just not going to do it. That is not
so that
acceptable.
can happen.
It shouldn't, but it does. Yeah, it absolutely does.
But that's kind of where I was getting at. Like knowing a bill that you co-sponsored that is supposed to work
Yeah.
can not work because a city or a county can just refuse to implement it.
Right.
And then
we got to
what you
go
were
sue 'em.
trying to prevent, you
Yeah.
were trying to prevent happens in a place where that you frequent,
Yeah.
a place that you were raised, a place that you have family ties to.
Yeah.
You grew up there as a child, and to see this tragedy happen, that had to just fucking piss you off.
Oh no,
I would be livid.
Absolutely,
would
I'm
have to
still livid because I'm sitting there as they're doing all the memorials and they unfurl the rainbow flag on Colorado Springs city government. You know what I mean, City Hall,
Right.
and I'm like,
But you know what time it is.
y'all are the ones who think trans kids and trans families should be put in prison
Right.
just for being who they are. Y'all the ones who think that LGBTQ people should never be able to get married
A bunch
just
of
for who they
fucking
are.
hypocrites.
So y'all are bullshit because you want to look good in this moment. And I looked over at them and I said, we cannot forget the fact that y'all never stood by the LGBT community to begin with.
Right.
And on top of that, you allow these mass shootings to happen because you're never gonna use a red flag against somebody who does not need to have these weapons of mass destruction. That's what this person had and used in this nightclub. These weapons are so deadly. And I will say that we have to be careful about how we implement these laws so that they don't just have adverse effects on people that look like us. Right? Because they want to
Right.
take away our weapons,
Yeah.
because they're afraid of us.
It's a
But you
fine
ain't afraid
line.
of that man who decided to shoot up a club.
It's a fine
This,
line.
this
So that's-
podcast
that-
It ain't that
was
fine though. It's
mostly-
about who makes the decision.
Yeah, I'm
So
saying
does that
in
go-
terms
You know what I mean?
of I'm saying in terms of just like you said, like
Yeah.
how do we implement a law
Yeah.
without hurting someone else? You know what I mean? Like there's law abiding gun owners that are of color,
Absolutely.
right? And we want to effectively, go out and shoot for sport. We want to protect ourselves.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just I would not trade places with you.
Yeah.
So
I guess going back to
Not
that,
easy.
I guess that's why it's so important when you elect these officials, right?
Yeah.
Because to your point, you can have a bill in place, but if they do not want to implement said bill, then it just falls flat on its face.
It
So
does.
then full circle, it comes back to make sure that you get out and vote on the issues that matter to you and the people that represent your issues. Make sure that you're, putting effort, funding, whatever it is, talent, time into them so that they can hold those positions and be able to implement the things that work. You know what I
And
mean?
be
Like it's not
nosy.
rocket science.
Be nosy, ask questions,
Yeah.
be informed. I think that's really important too. Are you implementing laws? Who's going to be, who's going to be the judge, right? Who's going to be the chief of police? What
Right.
does that look like? Because you can talk a good game, but if you're putting someone in place who's going to, go against exactly what you said or go against community, then are you really about that life? And so just be nosy and ask those questions. And quite frankly, it's our job to be responsive.
And I would say curious versus nosy.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit nosy.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
You know,
So, you know, it goes back to what I said before. It's empathy and it's proximity.
Yeah.
I firmly believe there will be no change in terms of like guns and regulation. And I'm not saying, hey, take everybody's guns because everybody abroad thinks that like we have guns like grass in the ground. That's not the thing. But
right.
We will not see change until something happens. God forbid something happens to somebody who has the influence to change the law.
Right, exactly.
Like, change the law.
Yeah, and that's right. And sometimes it takes those tragic incidences. But what I will say is that I work on the bills that I work on because of my personal experience too, right? My sister was incarcerated for 30 years in and out because of substance misuse, right? Because of mental health issues that were never treated, never dealt with, right? And that whole criminality around all of that. And so I work on these bills because I saw firsthand what happened to her, right? So if more of us get in those positions that have real life experiences, then we'll be able to make more laws and with that proximity to us, right, that actually won't have so many of those adverse consequences to our own communities, right?
Authenticity.
Right?
It's
Because we
crazy.
know it, we get it.
Lived
We've been there.
experience.
We've been there. We live that experience. That's key.
No, it's funny you said because Damo doesn't think I listen to him, but I listen to a lot of things he says when it's the right thing. So for me and Co specifically, like we go to a gym and it's like it's heavily populated with the LGBTQ community, and it's all about, you know, proximity and empathy, right? Like, because you just know what you don't know and you have these conversations, and you know, at the end of the day, human, normal people, and it's like, oh yeah, I like the same things, or you know, we do different things. Like it's all that, and it's just crazy of like when now those things happen, you're thinking about your friends in the community that you're involved with. Are like, damn, I feel that, and you know, it's just like I gotta represent for them, you know, and just do things that you're not comfortable with. Like I've been to the Gay Pride Parade and all that, and it's a blast actually.
Right?
Like it's a lot of fun
Isn't
and
it?
all that stuff. And it's just, you know, those different things just to open up your mind to the world. Like you just can't be in this bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you did that.
Do you mind if I turn the tables?
Yeah.
Before you do that, can we do this or that?
It's along those lines. So, yes, go ahead.
Okay. So you ready to play this or that?
It's
All
like a
right,
nice
let's
little
get
warm
into
up.
it. I thought that's where we were I thought it was warm up, but we've been at this for an hour.
We've been having a lot of fun.
Hey,
We just get into it.
Right.
So
don't be so dope, Leslie.
this or that, no context. You get to choose just one,
Okay.
and then you can pass. So if
Okay.
you're like, it won't be too hard, but
All right.
I might throw one out there, and you might be like, nah, I'll pass on this one.
Popeyes or churches.
This podcast.
All right, so here we go. This or that, blue or red?
Purple.
Yeah, all right, I'll give you that. All right, dinner and a movie or Netflix and chill?
Netflix and chill.
All right, comedy or drama?
Drama.
Broncos or Nuggets?
Damn Broncos, but you broke my heart.
Got it. Avalanche or Rapids?
Avalanche.
Okay. SZA or Her?
Her.
Okay. She's throwing them out there. Travel to the future or to the past?
I'm all into Afrofuturism, so let's go to the Black future.
All right. Like it.
To the metaverse.
Let's do it. Are you doing Trevor Noah or Jon Stewart?
Trevor Noah.
Okay. Margarita or martini?
Martini.
Shea butter or cocoa butter?
That's a
Shoot,
tough
now
one.
y'all
That's a
got
tough
me.
one.
Hey, you're like
What time of year?
rusty feet, or I gotta do my hair.
We're gonna have to go both on that.
Yeah,
we
both?
gotta have all of it.
You're like, yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Last one. This might be a tough one. Harvey Milk or James Baldwin?
James Baldwin.
There we go. Thanks for playing.
This podcast.
Absolutely.
Bussin'.
So in the spirit of like turning the tables a little bit, we've been asking you a ton of questions.
Yeah.
Like, what do you have for us, if anything, in this space?
What do you want the next mayor to do? Like, what do you think about where Denver is now, and where do you see us going?
That's a great question, and I'll go first. I think I'm very business minded, right? And I think some of the things that I've been seeing within the city specifically, there's been a lot of changes, some of them good, I think, but for Black people specifically, haven't had a chance to reap the benefits.
Right.
So when I think about Park Hill, a lot of great stuff going on. But what I think happens is that in that great stuff that's going on, we just don't get to reap those benefits for the most part, or at least those that have been part of the community since day one. So when you think about the Holly, Fairfax, and things that are happening, like love the change, but it doesn't bring a lot of our businesses in with it.
Yeah.
You know what I
Bring
mean?
us, yeah.
And I guess that's a question of like,
No, you can't do that. This is her turn.
got it. But I mean, those are the kind of things that I think about of like when you have gentrification, how can it benefit everybody? Because proximity, again, I'm all about being integrated and being with people because I just love people. But how do you make sure that your community and the foundation of what made the neighborhood is represented, gets to stay and benefit off those things?
Yeah. You require it.
Yeah.
You write the laws, right?
Right.
So many times the laws are written against us, not for us, right? And so you require it be for community, and you require it be about community, right?
Right.
It's more than just saying, this amount of buildings have to be affordable. Like, okay, what does that mean? What about requiring that these businesses have to be from community? When it's white businesses out of Stanley Marketplace, it's all good. Colorado businesses, but why don't we have a Stanley in Park Hill? Where Black-owned businesses or legacy families
Or
from
brown. Yeah,
the area,
absolutely.
or brown, whatever you are, legacy in any way, are able to have their businesses thrive. Not just say, here's a place, but actually fund it, provide the support, provide the access to capital that Black folks, brown folks don't have access to, have never had access to. You should be mortgaging your home to save your small business.
That's
you
like
speaking facts right there.
That's where I'm on that same page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Leslie, the key word, the word you just said that resonated with me is legacy families.
Yeah.
Right. And, we all know what's going on over at the Park Hill Golf Course, right? Mm-hmm. And I think for me,
Well, talk about that a little bit. Can you go?
Yeah.
Because everybody doesn't
I
know.
can a little bit, just I'm not like too entrenched in it, to where I feel confident enough to really.
Well, let me give a stat.
But in terms of how, okay, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, because Co and I have been a part of these conversations, and I think that's why it's so deep. Yeah. And the thing that's going on with the Park Hill Golf Course is there's a conservation easement that's on the property.
Yes.
Open space, kind of a food desert area in Northeast Park Hill. A lot of the community members want to build affordable housing for Black and brown, business opportunities.
It's used area,
and then also, a hybrid of an open space still, because it's that much land over there. So
and it's
that's
the,
what
it's
it
the
is.
last spot in Denver that has that much land.
It is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so when you say legacy families, I think, I go to these meetings, I go to these presentations that they have up there to kind of say, okay, this is our plan for the land if the easement is raised, right? My dad owned a tire shop in the Dahlia. He was the last thing to get tore down before they redeveloped it. Man, and shout out to Michael Hancock, man. He pulled me my pops to the side,
bussin'.
and he's like, he kind of advised us a little bit in terms of how we should move forward. My dad is upselling. He didn't want to, but he was pretty much forced to. So the first question I asked the people who were developing, I said, what are you guys doing to create opportunities for people who were forced out of the community that had businesses to actually come back? My dad's in his 80s. Like, he's not going to reopen a business now in Park Hill, but would that be an option if you had a place in the Holly? If you had a place, no, the Holly's still there, but let's say the Dahlia, right? That's not there anymore, right? If you had a barbershop, if you own that skating ring, if you had bought into the grocery store, you know what I mean? Because they wanted that area, they wanted to develop that, right?
Absolutely.
Is there any, I'm not gonna say reparations, but is there any way to bring those businesses back into the community?
Make sure you have priority.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So that's my want from the new mayor, right? Is how do we bring black business back to Denver, right? And then also, what is our percentage of African Americans in Denver now? City and county of Denver, I know, is it like 4%, 6%?
It's lower. It's lower than it was. It's lower than 8. It might be at 6. I'd have to look that up. But
how do we attract? Like, how do we make Denver more attractive for black and brown people?
Affordable housing, things like that.
We don't have. I think your vision is beautiful, for one, and I think it's real that so many black-owned businesses have been pushed out. And that happens. That's why people hate what we are calling gentrification, right? Because it means it's for you, not for us, and we're going to have to leave because of it. And it's true. It happens across the country, and it's happened right here in Denver. And so for me, it's about saying that your family is not a foregone conclusion. We don't have to say that your family left, so you got to stay gone. In fact, what are we doing to ensure that we're bringing families back alongside of attracting new black families into the neighborhood, black and brown families, and whomever else wants to come to Park Hill, so that we can all benefit from the prosperity and the abundance that comes, And so for me, I want to work on really bringing folks back into Park Hill, back into our legacy communities and our legacy families, and then providing those opportunities. You want to open a business? It might not still be a tire shop, but maybe it harkens back, right, to that space that your family used to own.
Yep.
And the thing that you saw your father doing every day, hard work to put food on the table.
High Sauce Coffee Shop or something like that.
Exactly. Tire coffee shop, whatever that is.
Absolutely.
High Sauce bootleg CDs.
Right, right. You know what I mean? Why not?
That's terrible.
Why not?
Hey,
but that's
so
those
the number's
things we can
11.1 and decreasing.
11.1
And decreasing.
Oh, it's
black
higher
population.
than I thought. Okay, 11.1. Yeah, and decreasing. Oh, because it used to be 13.
It's decreasing.
Yeah. So I think that is a priority that will be a priority for my administration. And then we have some other opportunities, which I love, because we have so many amazing, black farmers, right? And we got a lot of black folks that are trying to get back to the roots, right? And talk about, being holistic and really thinking about what we're putting into our bodies and how we're ensuring that black folks are as strong and thriving. Denver owns a lot of land outside of Denver.
Say more about that.
Oh.
Denver owns a lot of land. Did you know that Red Rocks is owned by Denver? It's Denver's Red Rocks.
No.
Did you know that Winter Park is owned by Denver?
No.
It's Denver's Winter Park because they wanted somewhere to ski.
Wow.
Okay?
No idea.
We have Denver mountain parks, So why don't we have communities in other parts of land that Denver already owns that say, you know what? We're going to make this Black Main Street.
That's pretty much what they did with the airport.
It's exactly. The airport is not in Denver.
Yeah, but they made it Denver.
Right. They made it
Yeah,
Denver.
you're absolutely right.
They made it Denver. And so why don't we say that you're going to have the power of the city, right? But you're going to be able to go out into eastern Colorado and start your farm. We're gonna connect that to the restaurants, in Denver that need what you're providing, and you need that business. So why can't we think about things that way as well? And being the most powerful city in the state means we have a lot of opportunities, right? To ensure that the people have what they need. Folks might not want to come back to Park Hill. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love living in Park Hill, but maybe it's not the right spot for them anymore, right? Maybe they just want a little bit of solitude and step back, Why don't we make sure that there's opportunities provided in other spaces? We annexed and we can do that, right? National Western, right? We decided to create a whole new policy and platform for National Western Stock Show.
Right.
Because people wanted to make sure that we had stockyards still in Denver,
Wow.
okay? We
That's
can do
interesting.
things like that and have programs like that for us and for the people of Denver to ensure that we are coming back. We do have a place to be. And that will have, building that prosperity, building that abundance for our families will have impacts for generations. Because we got to talk about generational wealth. That's what we should be building.
This
in Denver.
podcast, bussin',
And
bussin'.
access.
Got it.
Of course.
What about you, Damo?
You know, I'm all about prosperity, man.
Right.
Like in whatever form that comes to you and your family. I don't have anything specific. It could be real estate. It could be small business. It could be a transportation company. It could be like whatever. It could be your kids going to school because you have indigenous lineage. You know what I'm saying? You
Yeah,
go to school
absolutely.
for free.
Just access.
Right.
Yeah, and so it goes back to access and prosperity. Those are the two things that stand out to me.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what we all got to fight for. It can't just be about this like temporary support because what's that's going to last a couple months and then we're out, you know?
Yeah.
If we don't have prosperity, if we don't have access, right? If we don't have families that are able to stay in Denver, our school's going to keep closing, you know? More Smileys will become more McCulloughs. And that's not what we need to see in our city.
Dope.
This
Yeah.
podcast,
I went to Smiley.
bussin', bussin'.
And now my kids go to McCullough.
The irony.
Why they gotta change the name?
Yeah, I'm
It
with
can
you.
still be Smiley.
I'm with
yeah.
you. I'm
It
with
can still
you.
be Smiley.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so being that you're a legislator, Leslie,
Yeah.
is reparations a pipe dream?
I think if we call it that, it is. You know, there's some words and some things that have gotten so
Wow.
toxic, you know, that we can't get it through the political discourse.
Wow.
I agree
So-
with you 100%.
So why call it that when I could say we're going to put some more funding and support for Black-owned businesses? You know, we're going to make sure legacy families have access to buying a home in this community.
podcast,
You know,
bussin', bussin'.
sometimes you got to. So when I passed police accountability, one thing I did was I said, we want to make sure that law enforcement, if they individually act outside of the scope of their badge, that they're held personally responsible. And it's going to be where we compromised was $25,000 per person, personal responsibility. And then the reason why I did that, though, was because I thought law enforcement needed to be bonded and insured. And this is something that Black folks have been talking about since before the Panthers, you know?
Right.
But that conversation seemed so Black Panthers that folks thought it was so radical. But I said, well, let's have the private insurance market come in and insure officers. And if they can't be insured, then they can't work in the state.
because that means they're not doing their job
Means
right.
they're not doing their job right. So I just didn't call it the same words.
Bussin', bussin'.
I used their words, but we got it passed. We
That's
got
dope.
it passed.
No, that's dope to hear. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so for me, once it's done, we can call it whatever we want. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
But I think that reparations, and I could be wrong, and I'm fine with being wrong, is a bit too toxic when we could still move forward so many other things in that same spirit.
I like how you brought it back to or you related it to the Black Panthers, because that whole movement started a lot of movements that have been adopted by the government.
Yeah.
So like, free breakfast at schools
Right. But
and things like that.
But if you
It's-
say the
it's
Black
crazy.
Panthers started that, they'd be like, oh, no.
Oh,
we
yeah,
don't want
radical
that.
group.
so
Like, yeah,
radical.
absolutely.
It's socialist, you know?
Absolutely.
Well, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It works.
Feed our kids.
Evidently it works.
Right?
You know?
Yeah, it works.
So,
Well, Leslie, I know you're a busy woman, and we appreciate you hanging out with us. We got to give you another round of
Thank
applause
you.
and
Oh,
your
hell no.
flowers.
Hey, that shit was fly.
It was, man. This was a fun one.
And Leslie is tough because it's cold in here.
it is cold.
It is cold. I turned it down so we could hear.
That's all right.
It's cold in here, man.
As soon as we done, we gonna crank that heat up.
It's Colorado cold. It's real cold.
Well, Damo usually closes us
Yeah.
out.
Yep. So one thing we always ask is, considering your experience here on the show, and up and coming elections, whatever,
Right.
who would you recommend to be on the show? Doesn't necessarily need to be a politician.
It could be anybody.
Anybody. I think we need Senator Coleman, but we also need my girl Danielle Schutz. Do you know Danielle Schutz?
Me personally, no.
Danielle has created the largest capital firm in the state. I think she's the largest led by a Black woman to build equity in the Black community, Black and brown communities. And so
Where's she based out of?
Denver, Colorado.
I think I did see her name somewhere.
It sounds
right here.
familiar.
It does. It
But
does
she's
sound
doing work.
familiar.
She's
No
doing
bullshit.
work everywhere. You know what I mean? And so bring on my girl Danielle, and let's talk about how we can really build that intergenerational wealth amongst Black folks.
Can you make the connection for us?
I can absolutely do that.
Danielle, we coming for you. Danielle,
for you.
Excuse me, your last name?
Shoots.
Shoots.
Yep.
Danielle Shoots, we're coming for you.
And Jason Coleman, we got you, brother.
James
I'm
Coleman.
sorry.
See, I tell you.
I went to school with a James. My bad.
Yeah.
No, we
Yeah,
got
yeah.
you. We got you, James. So wait, he's the
Senator now.
senator.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and before that, he was
Rep.
for the 39th district.
No, 33.
Okay.
Senator and representative for District 7. So he's Montbello, Green Valley.
Yep.
Got it. Got it.
And he's a Park Hill Pirate.
Yep.
And Park
Yep.
Hill.
And so now he also represents Park Hill as a Senate district.
So real quick, the 8th district, is that like one of the largest? Because you got Park Hill,
It's the
Congress.
It's the best. Yeah. So
There you go. It's the best.
Park
That's
Hill,
all I
Congress
meant.
Park,
This
Summit,
5 points.
podcast.
5 points.
Bussin'
A little bit of Whittier in there.
Cole, Clayton. Mm-hmm.
All the ones that make a difference.
Exactly.
There you go.
On the east
This
side. Yeah.
podcast.
Money in them districts now.
Yeah, talk about. You never stumble upon the unexpected if you stick to the familiar. So go out there, represent the community, and we out.
This
you.
podcast.
Thanks so much, Leslie.